These are some frequently asked questions about California's judicial branch of state government, obviously one of our three branches, just like under our federal system of government. So the first one is, what does the California Constitution in Article 6, Section 1 provide? It says that the judicial power of the state is vested in the Supreme Court, the courts of appeal, and the superior courts, all of which are deemed courts of record. What is the composition of the Supreme Court? The Supreme Court consists of the Chief Justice and 6 associate justices. How is a majority decision rendered by the Supreme Court? There must be an agreement of 4 judges present at the argument for a judgment. How are judicial districts created in the state? The legislature must divide the state into districts, with each containing a court of appeal with 1 or more divisions, and each division consists of a presiding justice and 2 or more associate justices. How are the superior courts created in this state? In each county of the state, and there are 58 counties in California, there's a superior court of 1 or more judges, and the legislature prescribes the number of judges and provides for the officers and employees of each superior court. What is the composition of the Judicial Council? The council consists of the Chief Justice and 1 other judge of the Supreme Court, 3 judges of the Courts of Appeal, 10 judges of the Superior Courts, 2 non-voting court administrators, 4 members of the state bar appointed by its governing body for 3-year terms, and 1 member of each house of the legislature appointed by that house, all of whom are voting members. And then also any other non-voting members as determined by the voting members of the Judicial Council. What is the composition of the Commission on Judicial Appointments? The commission consists of the Chief Justice, the Attorney General, and the presiding justice of the Court of Appeal of the affected district. Or if there are 2 or more presiding justices, the one who has presided longest. Or when a nomination or appointment to the Supreme Court is to be considered, then the presiding justice who has presided longest on any court of appeal. What is the composition of the Commission on Judicial Performance? The commission consists of 1 judge of a court of appeal and 2 judges of superior courts, each appointed by the Supreme Court, 2 members of the State Bar of California who have practiced law in this state for 10 years, each appointed by the governor, and 6 citizens who are not judges, retired judges, or members of the State Bar of California, 2 of whom are appointed by the governor, 2 by the Senate Committee on Rules, and 2 by the Speaker of the Assembly. What is the State Bar of California? The State Bar is a public corporation, and every person admitted and licensed to practice law in California is a member of the State Bar, except while holding office as a judge of a court of record. Who has jurisdiction over habeas corpus claims? The Supreme Court, Courts of Appeal, Superior Courts, and their judges have original jurisdiction in habeas corpus proceedings. Do the state courts have other original jurisdiction? Yes, they have it in proceedings for extraordinary relief in the nature of mandamus, certiorari, and prohibition. What is the role of the Supreme Court in death penalty cases? The court has appellate jurisdiction when judgment of death has been pronounced. Can the Supreme Court take a case from a court of appeal? Yes, the Supreme Court may, before decision, transfer to itself a cause in a court of appeal. What is the finding that must be made in order to set aside a judgment or grant a new trial in the state? After an examination of the entire cause, the court is of the opinion that the error complained of has resulted in, quote, a miscarriage of justice, unquote. Who is responsible for publishing appellate court decisions? The legislature must provide for the prompt publication of the opinions of the Supreme Court and the courts of appeal as the Supreme Court deems appropriate, and those opinions must be available for publication by any person. What are the requirements for being a judge in this state? For at least 10 years immediately preceding selection, that person has been a member of the state bar or served as a judge of a court of record in this state. Who votes on a retention election for Supreme Court justices? The judges of the Supreme Court are to be elected at large, that is statewide, at general elections. Who votes on a retention election for Court of Appeal justices? The judges of the courts of appeal must be elected in their districts at general elections in these so-called retention elections. Can a judge practice law? No. A judge of a court of record may not practice law during the term for which the judge was selected for that office. Can a judge hold other public office? No. A judge of a court of record is ineligible for public employment or public office other than judicial employment or judicial office, except that a judge of a court of record may accept a part-time teaching position that is outside the normal hours of his or her judicial position and that does not interfere with the regular performance of his or her judicial duties while holding office. When can a judge be disqualified? A judge is disqualified from acting as a judge without loss of salary while there's pending an indictment or an information charging the judge in the United States with a crime punishable as a felony under California or federal law, or a petition to the Supreme Court to review a determination by the Commission on Judicial Performance to either remove or retire a judge. What is the role of the Commission on Judicial Performance? It must exercise discretionary jurisdiction with regard to the oversight and discipline of subordinate judicial officers, according to the same standards and subject to review upon petition to the Supreme Court. What must the Commission on Judicial Performance do with any judicial disciplinary actions? It must provide to the governor of any state the text of any private admonishment, advisory letter, or other disciplinary action, together with any information that the Commission on Judicial Performance deems necessary to a full understanding of the Commission's action with respect to any applicant whom the governor of any state indicates is under consideration for a judicial appointment. Who determines the salary of judges in the state? The legislature must prescribe compensation for judges of courts of record. Who determines whether judges get retirement in this state? The legislature must provide for the retirement of judges of courts of record for age or disability. Who appoints court commissioners? The legislature may provide for the appointment by trial courts of record of officers such as commissioners to perform subordinate judicial duties. How large is California's judicial branch of government? California's judicial branch of government is the largest of the country, handling over 10 million criminal and civil cases each year. There are more than 2,000 judicial offices in this state and over 18,000 employees of the judicial branch. The court system in this state is led by the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. What are the three levels of courts in California? The superior courts, which serve as trial courts, the courts of appeal, which serve as the intermediate appellate courts, and the Supreme Court, which of course is the highest court in this state. Which entity serves as the administration of the courts in this state? It is overseen by the Judicial Council, including the adoption of court rules. How many justices has the Supreme Court had at one time on the bench? California initially had a Supreme Court of only 3 justices, but eventually in the late 1800s, a constitutional change established a 7-member high court in California. How long are the terms of the Supreme Court justices? They're 12-year terms followed by a retention election if that justice wants another 12-year term. Are the Supreme Court's decisions in writing? Yes, in the late 1800s, their decisions were required to be in writing, as that was not a requirement earlier in time. What is the jurisdiction of the state Supreme Court? It must review all death penalty cases. The High Court has discretion to review appeals from the state's courts of appeal. Cases from the appellate courts are based upon petitions for review, and the justices decide to accept or decline the case at their weekly conferences. Only a small number of cases are accepted for review by the state Supreme Court. Who appoints Supreme Court justices? The Chief Justice and the 6 associate justices are appointed for 12-year terms by the governor after review by the State Bar's Commission on Judicial Nominees Evaluation, often referred to as the Jenny Commission. Appointees are then confirmed by the Commission on Judicial Appointments, and at the end of their 12-year terms, justices may also stand for election in order to continue to serve. Where are the superior courts located? There are over 400 locations and over 2,000 judges located in each of the 58 counties of the state. What is the jurisdiction of the superior courts? These trial courts have jurisdiction over criminal and civil cases, including specialized areas such as family law and probate law. Who appoints superior court judges? Superior court judges are appointed by the governor when a vacancy occurs, and they serve 6-year terms. These trial court judges are also elected by county in general elections. Where are the courts of appeal located? The courts of appeal are located in 6 districts. They are numbered 1 through 6, and those 6 districts cover the entire state of California. There are just over 100 justices who serve on the appeals courts. What is the jurisdiction of the courts of appeal? Our intermediate appellate courts have jurisdiction over appeals from cases tried in the Superior Court. They also have jurisdiction over cases of habeas corpus, challenging the criminal confinement of an individual, mandamus, which is forcing an official duty, prohibition, some sort of restraining action, certiorari, review by an earlier judicial action at the Superior Court level, and challenges to decisions of certain state boards, including the Workers' Compensation Appeals Board, the Agricultural Labor Relations Board, the Public Employment Relations Board, the Department of Alcoholic Beverage Control, and some types of decisions of California's Public Utilities Commission. Who appoints the Court of Appeal justices? The courts of appeal justices are appointed by the governor and confirmed by the Commission on Judicial Appointments. At the end of their terms and in gubernatorial elections, the justices must be approved by the voters. What is the role of the Judicial Council? It's the policy-making body for the court system. The Judicial Council has 21 voting members and 6 advisory members and is chaired by the state's Chief Justice. What is the Commission on Judicial Appointments? The Commission is charged with reviewing gubernatorial appointments to the appellate courts in this state. The CJA is comprised of the Chief Justice, the Attorney General, and the most senior presiding justice on the Court of Appeal of the affected district. And that is for a Court of Appeal appointee. And then it includes as the 3rd member, the state's most senior presiding justice of the Court of Appeal, and that's only used for a Supreme Court appointee. How does the Commission on Judicial Appointments operate? When an attorney is nominated by the governor, the appointee is required to be reviewed by the Commission on Judicial Appointments. There's a public hearing that is held on the nomination so that the appointee's credentials can be considered in a public forum, and the appointment of a justice is effective once the commission confirms that individual. What is the Commission on Judicial Performance? The CJP is charged with overseeing judges in the state. As an independent state agency, it's required to investigate misconduct complaints that have been filed against California judges and justices. The CJP can discipline judges pursuant to the state constitution. You see this in Article 6, Section 18. The CJP also shares responsibility for overseeing court commissioners and referees, along with the local courts. And that's also pursuant to Article 6, Section 18.1 of our state constitution. What happens when a formal charge is filed? Once the formal charge has been filed against a sitting judge, then the commission must conduct a public hearing. What authority does the CJP have? Under Article 6, Section 18D, the commission has the authority to one of 3 things: remove a judge or censure a judge or former judge for action that constitutes willful misconduct in office or persistent failure or inability to perform the judge's duties, or habitual intemperance in the use of intoxicants or drugs, or conduct that is prejudicial to the administration of justice that brings the judicial office into disrepute, or they can publicly or privately admonish a judge or former judge found to have engaged in improper action or a dereliction of duty. And it has the authority to retire a judge for disability that seriously interferes with the performance of the judge's duties and is or is likely to become permanent. What happens when the commission proposes to remove, censure, admonish, or retire a judge? These rulings are subject to discretionary review by the state Supreme Court. And finally, who's a member of the commission? It's composed of 11 members, 3 judges appointed by the California Supreme Court, 4 members appointed by the governor, 2 attorneys, and 2 non-attorney public members. 2 public members who are appointed by the Assembly Speaker, and 2 public members who are appointed by the Senate Committee on Rules. And these appointments are for 4-year terms. So that's our review of the state's executive branch of state government in California.